we still need to stay focused on. We've talked a bit about COVID today, but I wanted to speak about parental rights, schools, and the fight over education, because this is something that we remember in the last election was critical in the victory of Glenn Youngkin, which was not expected. They all thought that Clinton flack Terry McAuliffe was going to come out victorious in that one. Turned out not to be so, because Youngkin came out saying schools should take the opinions and interest of parents in the education of the parents' children very much into account. They should actually listen to them. It should matter. And they also should be responsive to the needs, first and foremost, of children and parents, the families that send their kids to these schools, not teachers' unions and lazy Democrat voting adults who just want to get away with the bare minimum, which I know is not all teachers, but teachers' unions do some really bad stuff and have done some really bad stuff during the COVID period here. So this has turned into a battlefield over parental rights. That's why in Florida they passed a parental rights bill. It has been signed by the Florida Senate. It awaits signature by Governor Ron DeSantis. The activists, and I mean quite specifically the activists of the LGBTQ plus community, have dubbed this the Don't Say Gay bill, which is not in any way in the bill. It actually doesn't allow you to say gay, anything about sex, whether it's gay sex, heterosexual sex, it doesn't matter. It's just a do not have sexual or gender identity or sexual relations instruction for kindergartners and pre-K up to the third grade. This shouldn't be super controversial, but the Democrats see an opening here based on the propaganda they're using to make it seem like they're on the side of the righteous here, and it's the bigots in the Republican Party that are causing the problems. Here's Chief PR Lady of the White House, Jen Psaki.
The steps we've seen in Texas and Florida are deeply concerning and are discriminating against exactly the kind of kids who we need to be loving and supporting. And we've seen, and I reference Florida because, as you know, they just recently passed a similar hateful bill that hurt some of the students most in need. In terms of any legal actions, I'd obviously point you to the Department of Justice, but I would just note that the President, the Secretary of Education, many members of the administration have spoken out about the discriminatory nature of these bills and our deep concerns about the message they're sending to LGBTQ kids and families.
Papa Clay's got some thoughts here.
Oh, I'm fired up. This is just a lie, okay? I can't imagine there is anybody out there with a kindergartner to a third grader who believes that sex should be a topic of conversation, either straight or gay sex, in the kindergarten, in pre-K, kindergarten, all the way through third grade. I know that we have a lot of kids that ride around in the car with their parents, so I always try to be conscious of what I'm saying on the radio in some way, especially since I had young kids of my own. This is just a lie, Buck. It's just a lie that there is in any way discrimination going on in these bills. There does not need to be any discussion of biology or sexuality in kindergarten classrooms. This is madness, right? That it would be. And so what is going on here is clearly the fear that was occurring. And some of you out there say, well, that's crazy. Did you see what I believe his name is Tom Bevan, who does Real Clear Politics? I work with my kids some. In fact, yesterday I was helping my first grader with his spelling bee, the words that he's going to have every week that he's learning how to spell. Did you see the fifth grader science class words that Tom Bevan put out that his kids in public school were getting?
Didn't see it, no.
This is where this kind of fear is coming from. He has a fifth grade kid, science classroom. Adolescence, okay, you might say, well, that makes sense for a fifth grader. Consent. I'm not sure that a fifth grader needs to be having discussions in his science class about consent to sexual acts. That seems a little bit strange, but maybe you're like, okay, they need to have that conversation. I don't personally. Transgender, 5th grade science. These are his 5th grade science vocabulary words. Cisgender.
I learned that word 3 years ago, and I had a large vocabulary,
There
sir.
you go. I like to think, Buck, that you and I would do very well on the SAT vocabulary test. Still, I'm sure we did well back in the day, too. I didn't even know what cisgender was. And here's another one. Non-binary. 5th grade science class. Does your kid need to learn non-binary, cisgender, transgender? Like, are these science terms that your 5th grader needs to be using? And again, I'm citing him. This is Tom Bevan. He runs high up in the running of Real Clear Politics. Great website. Encourage you guys to check it out. They do a good job of presenting a variety of perspectives in the political world. I use it all the time, Buck, because you know I'm kind of a polling nerd. I like to just look and see what polls are out there, different states, everything else. Okay, this idea that this is banning the use of the word gay is a lie. It's a lie that is being spread widely.
And they go even further than that. And this is a common tactic that you will come up against if you're having any discussion, public debate about transgender issues, the trans agenda. This is an extension of the left's speech equals violence argument. It's unless you concede to the agenda, the trans agenda in this case, unless you concede, you are forcing people to commit suicide. Therefore, you are effectively murdering people. You are engaged in violence. That is actually an argument tactic that is frequently used. People that I know who are on the front lines of this debate will often be told, children will commit suicide because of you. That's what they'll say. And here is Florida State Senator Shervin Jones suggesting that this bill will, in fact, increase suicide.
It's going to create an environment where it's going to continue to keep children more closeted. It's going to put more of a censor on teachers, where teachers are, as a former teacher, teachers are the first responders to a lot of problems that children come to speak to someone about. So it's not going to be beneficial to the teacher nor to the student. And let's be clear, the Trevor Project did a study and come to find out that LGBTQ youth are 4 times more likely to commit suicide, not because of their sexual orientation, but it's how they are treated. And that is actually the message that I was trying to convey to my colleagues in the room. Yes, you can have your belief, but who are you hurting in this language that you're pushing, not just in Florida, but national?
I mean, allow 6-year-olds to be talked to about cisgenderism and pansexualism and whatever else the left decides, or else you're encouraging child suicide. I mean, Clay, this is vicious. I mean, this is evil.
It is vicious. It's just untrue. And I would imagine that most people out there explain that babies initially, when you're talking to kindergartners and first graders and whatnot, they come from the stork, right? I mean, that's what I was told back in the day. That's what most kindergartners and first graders
I told you guys what I learned, and I thought that was true for a while.
Yeah, that would have been biologically implausible. Almost as biologically implausible as being told that a man can get pregnant and have a baby, which is what we are sometimes told now as well. And I mean, so, Clay, it's just craziness.
When I was 6, I think I thought I was a stegosaurus for a few days. I mean, they're little kids. This is for parents and for families to handle. This is not for the public education system to dive into. But you notice the left is very bothered. The same way they were very bothered by any kind of talk about, and then, of course, prohibition on critical race theory indoctrination in school. They're very bothered on gender identity issues for pre-K.
Yeah, let's be honest.
5-year-olds and 6-year-olds. What is wrong with these people?
I give a lot of credit to my wife for summing this up well. When you're talking about 6-year-olds being able to pick their gender, we don't let 6-year-olds pick their lunches, right? Because they would eat birthday cake for every meal if they could. They would eat candy. They would eat cookies. They would only eat sweets if we let 6-year-olds pick all of their food. So why in the world do we let a 6-year-old pick their gender? I mean, this is craziness. Or teach them that it's normal to be picking their gender at 6-year-old. Biology is real. You know, I want to start selling T-shirts on Outkick, Buck, that just says biology is real. Boys and girls exist.
I mean,
This is craziness.
A 6-year-old couldn't decide. If you let your 6-year-old decide, without setting up homeschooling or something, they're just not going to go to school.
Yes.
Child services might be called, unless you set up a separate instruction. But if you just said, "Oh, my 6-year-old doesn't want to go to school," the state actually will mandate instruction for children to go to school at some level. But you're supposed to have 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds who decide that they're actually not their gender, and then the school is supposed to. By the way, we all know this. It's not like the school talks. The school encourages it. These programs want to encourage gender transition, which is why the study out of Brown University on rapid onset gender dysphoria, which proved by the numbers that young children who are around other young children that are suddenly made a big deal of because they think they might be a girl. It's usually boys transitioning to girls. They try to bury this study because it wasn't with the narrative, which is that maybe children are very vulnerable to manipulation and to psychological imposition. And that's why the parents want to have them protected and not have them subject to the whims of a school system that nobody should really trust.
Buck, we won't let kids buy alcohol until they're 21, but we let them pick their gender before they even hit puberty and start pumping them full of drugs if they want. I mean, that's child abuse.
I mean, it would be fascinating to see if you could do a study of when people have their first, let's say a 12-year-old goes in and says, I think, 12-year-old boy goes in and says, I think I'm a woman. I guarantee you in every school system across the country, the overwhelming majority of any administrator would celebrate and act like it's time to break out a birthday cake instead of saying, hold on a second. Like, let's talk this through. I think that the agenda is to push as much transition as possible for as many people as possible, because that then further normalizes taking hormone therapy when you're not even fully physically
buy
matured.
A beer and you're going to pump somebody full of hormones?
And by the way, this is a losing issue. This is a losing issue for the left, which is why they have to lie about it. So we stay on this, folks. We stay on this.